So good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for joining the call this morning and the video conference. We have two major topics to discuss. And the first is going to be a little bit of a change of format for this morning and for our video conferences, but we thought it would be very helpful to have a discussion about the KL2 program, and this would help kick off the new RFA for KL2 applications, with the goal of the start there being in the spring of 2019, as soon as our competitive renewal starts. The second topic, equally important, will be discussion about the External Advisory Committee meeting, which will start on Sunday evening, the 9th, and then be the full day of Monday, the 10th of December. I think first with the KL2 and Ken, I think you and Jean and Jeff and others around the table may have sort of a framing for the application.
Yes. Well, thank you, Bob, and good morning, everyone, from an exceptionally cold Birmingham today, unseasonably cold. In fact, I was remarking, I've been here for 20 years. I don't ever remember it being this cold this time of year, so I guess it's global weirdness. In any event, so we want to tell you a little bit about the KL2 and the RFA that has just been released. The most important piece is on the left-hand side, or I guess the right-hand side if you're staring at the slide, and that is the announcement that has or should be very soon making its way around your medical center. And I want to thank Jean and Andy for putting this together. It really has the essential details in there, and so that if nothing else, for those who are on the phone to learn more about the KL2, if you don't leave with anything else today, please make note of this and copy down the URLs and the codes and things so that you can link to this and have the detailed information you need. But we're delighted to kick this off and to, as Bob said, get ready for hopefully starting people in the spring. To do that, it's a multi-stage process that we've initiated, and we'll walk you through that today just to give you some details. But this, in many ways, is similar to other K programs. It's aimed at junior faculty. It's mentored career development in clinical and translational sciences. And quite importantly, to our center, the focus here is on diseases and conditions that disproportionately affect our region. And we've heard very clearly from our reviewers and from the external advisors to the center that it's really important that we focus on this. And so when you do submit applications, we're going to be looking for this. This will be important, and we can help as well if there's a need to link you with other expertise, possibly outside of your immediate confines. So I guess I have the slide answer here, and I'll go on to the next one for those on the webinar. Yes. Okay, don't worry. There we go. Okay, and so this just sort of illustrates graphically, using our famous, affectionately known as the pimple diagram. I'm sorry to be so graphic so early in the day. The vesicle, if you will, maybe be more politically correct. You can see where the KL2 fits in to the training spectrum for investigator development, community development, research staff development. This is where this is. And then over to the right are our current KL2 scholars, who I'll comment on in a little bit more detail, but we're very pleased to have this great group, some of whom have already started to transition off the mechanism. This is a 2-year mechanism, and we're very hopeful that during the course of that 2 years, many successful trainees will move on to other things, such as extramural pays and conceivably even our awards. So this just lists a set of specific aims from our grant application. I think these are specific, but to some degree reasonably generic around training. We want to identify and recruit a good cohort And I want to also, before I get too far along, thank many of you on the phone, both individually and collectively as institutions, for lending us your names for inclusion in our renewal application. But as you may recall, what we did when we wrote the KL2 is we had a wish list, if you will, of people who seemed eminently qualified for this. As we told you at the time, there's obviously not a commitment on your part, and there's not a full commitment on our part other than to really want to engage you in this process. But that's the list of qualified candidates, and I think we haven't seen the final review yet, but we anticipate from the overall score that this was viewed very favorably by the review committee. And thank you again for helping us get all that information together as we worked on the application. So, yeah.
If you were not part of that effort,
Thank you.
are you still
Right,
eligible?
absolutely. So this was just, it was a starting point. And so then there probably are several people on the call, and certainly many at your respective institutions who are not in that initial list. And there may be some on the list who have moved into other areas or have gotten funded already. So yeah, it's a starting point, and I think that's a really important point. Thank you for bringing that up. So we want to enhance career development. We want to provide some things that are program specific. We'll go into that because it's the most important thing is that you have protected time and that you're supported. But it's not just about an individual K award. I mean, you could compete extramurally for that. There is a component of team building, and we want to do some things together to create a sense of program and a team approach to advance people's careers. This just highlights the tremendous expertise that we collectively bring to this in terms of the number of mentors and partners that were all featured in our renewal, and the very extensive extramural research base that is necessary to support such training. This gives you a sense also of the success, and this really is important for a couple of reasons. One is this is a competitive application. We're looking for people that have a high likelihood of being successful, and as you can see, many of our trainees have been successful. Many of our scholars have gone on to other forms of funding. They've published their work in high-impact journals, and we're delighted by this. We'd like to take certainly some credit through the program, but probably the biggest credit is that we're looking for really good people. We're looking for people that have a high probability of continuing success of their junior career into ultimately independent funding. And so this is just one example from Courtney Peterson. Not only has she published in high visibility places, but her work has gotten a lot of acclaim in the lay media, and more. This is becoming a metric that even funding agencies are recognizing as important to highlight the public health impact of what people are doing and how it translates into meaningful changes at a community level. So that is, I can make this go forward again here. There we go. And that actually takes us to a quick overview then of what the new opportunity is. And I want to turn it over to Joan Merchant. I think, Joan, you can introduce yourself as well, but Joan has been with us now for about a year. And we're just delighted to have her as part of the program, and she's doing a terrific job with the other staff here at the CTSA and CCTS in putting together these materials and really getting our program well organized. I'm going to let her speak a little bit to what this new RFA looks like and what the requirements are for application.
Thank you, Dr. Sag. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad to be talking to all of you. I am your first contact, so if you have any questions about this as we go on, and if you need any help, if you'd like a list of mentors, primary mentors that we have around the network, I've got a document. I'll be happy to send it to you. Happy to help you build bridges if you'd like an introduction to someone you don't know. What you see on the screen right now is just a snapshot of what's available for the selectees. It's 75% minimum committed time. So that is an important number, because it's going to need, we're going to need to see that your department is going to support you in doing this. So that's one of the requirements for the pre-application, is something from your department saying that should you be awarded this KL2, that you would have that time freed up for you to do this protected research. And you'll note that's 50%, a minimum of 50% for surgeons, as long as there's a justification. I won't go over all the numbers there. I just wanted to mention that the $2,500 for travel is included in that $35,000 number. So that is part of that. If you get to the point where you're invited to do a full application, and in your budget justification, that will be part of that. Okay, so here we've got a timeline and a description of what it is that you'll be submitting. The pre-applications are due Friday, December 7th. And then before sort of most of the institutions break for the holiday, we should issue the invitations for full proposals. And Dr. Sag, I thought it would be helpful if we talk a little bit about what we'd like to see in the research plan, because that'll be one of the most important documents that you submit. You'll see it's not very long, but I think a successful pre-application research plan is going to show how your primary mentor is going to work with you. And hopefully, if you've identified one or two co-mentors as part of your team, how you'll work together and how their expertise will work in synergy to help you achieve what it is that you want to do. So that's definitely something we'll be looking for. Your primary mentor is going to be someone who has experience mentoring people, who has had success in getting research funding. And so, again, it's always helpful to have a mentoring team that spans disciplines. As you've already gotten in your extensive research training, you've gotten a lot of depth, and this program will help give you breadth. It's one of the things that separates translational research from other forms of support. And we think at CCTS that the translational research scientist is going to be the most successful at ultimately being a successful research scientist over your whole career. So we very much look forward to getting those. I wanted to mention on that website where you can access the instructions and the flyer, very soon there'll be another little yellow button, which will be your database where you can upload your documents. It's still being fine-tuned. We're just waiting for it to come out of production and be ready. But I just wanted to let you know, I'm sorry it's not there yet, but we didn't want to hold the RFA up. So that'll be there soon. And then you see a little bit later on the full proposals that are invited will be due February 8th.
A little more specifically on some of the, try to anticipate what some of your questions might be. When you go eventually to the website to get the information about the specific things that we recommend, I mean, you can use this 2 pages however you want. You get 2 pages to make an argument for why you should be invited to submit a full application. But I mean, normally you would include standard sections of a preliminary research proposal, significance, innovation, approach, and references. That doesn't count against the last section doesn't count against the 2-page limit. Now, some of you may want to include a separate section on your mentoring plan. Another suggestion to consider is to incorporate some of that into the letters that you may work with your mentor in helping to draft. But we really do want to know, I mean, like any good K application, it's both about the project. The project's important. The project doesn't have to be the most pivotal project that has ever taken place. In fact, it's kind of unlikely that it will be in a 2-year project, right? It's going to be a preliminary project, but it's got to, the key is this preparing you to go to the next stage? And so we want to know how, how this, don't make us guess, but tell us what's the next step going to be? And how is this preparing you to write an extramural K or to write an R21, whatever it's going to be, or to advance in that particular area? We've really started to already develop some preliminary work in that space, and have some publications there, and this is going to advance your expertise there. That's even better. And just one other caveat to Jean's great introduction is that generally your mentor will be a person who's had a track record of mentoring, but not necessarily. I mean, it's conceivable you could have a relatively newly minted associate professor as your mentor who has time and energy and expertise. And I think that would be viewed favorably too. That person has all the capacity to really be a great mentor. If they've mentored other people and they've got a track record of success, that's helpful. But if you've got a very senior person who's got 10 trainees and it's not clear from the letter that that person really has the time to mentor you, that that may come across as well. So it's finding that with the right team, as Sean has said.
Thank you, Dr. Sag. Up here you see from the grant, at the very top are the elements that we consider to be required for K scholars while they're in the program. So obviously the first thing is your Mentor K project. The CTSTP program is a 6-month-long training program that brings in all the elements of clinical and translational science. Dr. Sag and I were just talking with a current KL2 scholar who said that she found that to be exceptionally helpful. And Dr. Chaplin, is it during that 6 months, is it once a week?
Day where you spend half the day going to an IRB meeting to see what the IRB is actually like, but otherwise it's a relative amount of time.
Thank you.
And then there'll be other seminars and trainings. The TIRS meeting is a monthly lunch. That's okay. No, we're always mindful that a junior faculty member is going to be a busy person, and we don't want these to be onerous. We just want them to enable you to be successful. So then there are other things beneath that. I just want to point out one element in the light pink column there, mini sabbaticals. If you don't know what those are, is a sort of a short, almost externship or training program that you can identify away from your home institution, where you could learn a new skill, make a new contact that would be helpful to you in moving forward with your career. So when we get to the point of invited full applications, we'll let you know a little bit more about what those are, but we do strongly encourage all K applicants to include that in their budget justification and think about what might be helpful for them. And then lastly, just frequently asked questions. And actually, I guess I should have labeled this recently asked questions because it hasn't been out that long, but we're going to add one more button to that KL2 page so that anything that's here is accessible to anyone. People have asked a lot of really terrific questions. One applicant or potential applicant from Auburn, because they have positions like that, they're asked if it could be, had to be a tenure level assistant professor, but research assistant professor is fine as far as what position you might achieve. Also, if you're not in that role just yet, right now, that's okay. We would just need assurances that you would be promoted to one of those positions by the time that you'd be starting. If you're invited to submit a full application, can a research assistant's time be included in the budget? Yes, that would be part of the TREs, they call them, training-related expenses. The pre-application materials, as I said, that'll be ready to be uploaded. We realize it'll take a little while to get those to you. That's me, John. I'm always happy to help. I'll include my cell phone number. I know the Thanksgiving holiday is coming up here, but this is absolutely my favorite part of this job. And I've loved all the questions that I've gotten this far and speaking with the folks that have contacted me. So I really look forward to reading these and hearing from you.
20 minutes, pretty close. And Bob, how much time do we have for questions?
Much time as we need to answer
Okay.
all of them.
All right, great. So we're ready for any questions that anybody has either in the room or on the phone. Just wanted to give an overview, but we really wanted to just see what questions you have. We'll continue to update the facts, and as people ask questions here, those will become part of the facts as well as other things that you either email us about or otherwise. Yes. If you could, yeah, that'd be great.
I don't know if it's turned on. Okay. Matt Atherburn, I'm in the Department of Physical Therapy. My question is there any issue with concurrently applying for extramural Ks along with the KL2? And if, we or I was awarded the KL2 and then, was subsequently awarded an extramural K, would then I just cycle off in a shorter period of time, or how would that look? And do you have any recommendations as far as timing?
Right.
Hold on.
Great comment. A common one, and I'm going to take a crack at it because this this comes up regularly. So it's a good thing for you, and it's a good thing for us if you're able to take some partial support on this and then ultimately go on to an extramural K. What probably isn't terribly advantageous to the grant process is if you are selected for this and then you're not able to accept it because you are currently receiving an extramural K. Maybe you can collectively recall this, is so you can be considered for both, but once you are ready to accept one of them, you have to withdraw from the other. And so that, I think, is the way we've done it. And so if, you put in both somewhat simultaneously, and then you get an award notice, which we will, extramurally, and it looks like it's going to go, then you need to let us know, and we'll take you out of the pool. That's fine. I think that's how we've done it. Is that your recollection as well?
Yeah, that's correct. And it's important to realize you cannot have concurrent funding from two different K mechanisms, as Ken outlined. And I think the goal is, as soon as someone is funded by the KL2, to be thinking about the next step after that, which could be an extramural K. And then when that kicks in, if it's before the end of the KL2, then you have to swing off the KL2.
Yeah. Okay.
Good question.
Great.
You.
Thank you.
I'll ask everybody online again.
Yeah. Anybody online have a question? I think the mic's open.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. This is Mark Gillespie. I'm sorry if I missed this, but my recollection was that in the first iteration of the KL2s, at least the first one I was interested in, there was a requirement for a co-mentor on the application. Is that still part of the eligibility requirements?
Yes, thank you, Mark. And what we've asked is that there be 2 letters of support, one from the primary mentor, and second letter come from a co-mentor and or a supervisor. We want in one of those letters clear commitment from the division, department, or school that in the event that this award is issued, that the protected time and faculty position will be available. Now, absolutely, as you said, Mark, that it is almost uniform. If I don't want to say it's a requirement, but it would be very unusual for a person to receive one of these awards with a single mentor. And we would encourage them to have a co-mentor. Sometimes they might have a team of mentors, which could be as many as 3 and possibly even 4 mentors from different areas. Often we say a primary mentor, a co-mentor that may be more methodologic, for example, and perhaps sort of a senior thought leader mentor. That could be the supervisor who provides sort of general career guidance. That would be a pretty typical mentoring team in a K award. And I think that's going to be needed both for this and certainly for an extramural K as well.
Dr. Sag, may I just briefly add that if you don't necessarily have a mentoring team for your pre-application, if you're selected for the invited full, that gives you some time to build those bridges.
Great comment. And we would be happy through the sort of matchmaking services that we can help provide to make suggestions. And in fact, by the way, in our application, we did that. And some of you may not have even known that, but we took some liberties in some of the names, and we said, well, this would be a pretty cool person at a different place to work with you. Now that that's a hypothetical and a wish list, if you will, but we'd be happy to help form those bridges if that ends up being relevant for you.
But let me follow this up with a quick question that's probably more semantic. But you've referred to a co-mentor and you've referred to a mentoring team. And in other training applications, that's sometimes called an advisory committee. I tend to view a mentor, a co-mentor, as a different responsibility than an advisory committee or a member of a mentoring team. So can you sort of distinguish between these various options, or maybe I'm just overreading it?
Yeah, I see your point, and I'm not sure I can, actually. I think it would vary a little bit on a case-by-case basis. I mean, in some cases, it may be advantageous to have two people that are, really going to spend a lot of one-on-one time. I mean, the primary mentor is the most important, and that's the person that you're going to have as a mentee, a very regular relationship with, and that would probably involve meetings no less than once or twice a week, and some sort of an open door policy where you can really have access to that person. A co-mentor might not have quite the same level of interaction, but it could be close. And then I know that we have some K-level trainees here at UAB where they do have an advisory group that, I go to some of those, and I go once or twice a year, and that's it. And that's the level of input. So I think that is a little bit different, maybe, as I think about it more, Mark. And I think we're really looking to have a mentoring team so that we know that there's going to be enough interaction during the career development period with that junior faculty member, and an advisory committee would be of added value if you want to propose that. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, if I could, Ken, if I'm hearing correctly, the difference between the term mentor and being a member of an advisory team might point to the degree of commitment of time and effort. An advisory team is there perhaps once or twice a year. The mentor, co-mentors would anticipate a higher degree of engagement in the development of the career. I think the other point I'd like to reinforce for everyone in this discussion is that the mentors can be drawn from around the entire partner network. And one of the advantages of thinking about us as a partner network is it allows our trainees, with advice perhaps, to reach out and look for those opportunities across all of the institutions. And it would be typical, actually, to have, when there are several mentors in a mentoring team, to have mentors representing different institutions.
Thank you.
So just so I make sure that I'm on the same page as you, it sounds to me like this sounds like it gives the applicant and their mentor a pretty high degree of flexibility to craft the best possible personal infrastructure for career development. We can call them what we want to, but you need to have the right expertise with the right level of commitment and availability to create a good training environment. Clear statement?
Well said. Well said.
Okay.
I agree with
All right.
that. And I think the people who are going to review these, which will include some of the ones in the room and on the phone, are tuned into that. And so we want, the goal is for people to be successful. And I think you've got to figure out, depending on what kind of work you're doing, what your area is, what does that look like? And we can help. If you have questions before submitting the LOI, reach out and we may have some suggestions about who to pair you with or what that group might look like. But that's, I think, important to make this a dialogue.
And I'm sorry, I have one more question unrelated to this, but it was about the time commitment for surgeons, which seems like a great idea to modulate the time commitment relative to the specialty and subspecialty. I can see getting questions from my constituents here about what constitutes a surgeon. For example, somebody who does obstetrics and gynecology, or a gynecologic oncologist. They wield a knife quite a bit. Will we consider them a surgeon? Yes. Or a urologist? We now have urologists on board that may be interested. they're surgeons. So, and a neurosurgeon would like to do this.
And we've had a neurosurgeon on the grant recently and currently. Chad is on from Mississippi. So the goal is to be sure that there's enough time to develop research expertise, to develop the skills in the publication track record to become a successful independent investigator.
Got it. Okay.
Is for proceduralists, surgeons specifically, but proceduralists, it may be that you can't get to 70%, and so we've been allowed some flexibility in that, but protected time more is better, no doubt about that, and that'll be considered in the review. I mean, if the review committee has a sense that this person is a dabbler, that they're not going to have the time they need, their focus is on clinical care, and there's worry that they're just not going to be able to develop the research expertise and track record in the 2-year period is not going to enhance that adequately, that's going to not be viewed well. So the more that you can convince the people looking initially at the letters and ultimately at the full application that you've got enough time to do what needs to be done, the better.
It may be that both of the things we just discussed, the composition of what I'm going to call globally the advisory committee, mentors, co-mentors, etc., mentor committee, the composition of that committee, as well as the time commitment of the applicant, those probably deserve some special justification, either in the budget justification or the research plan component of the grant, should they be invited to submit.
I
maybe
agree.
that kind of information ought to be transmitted to the.
Yeah, I think in the full application, that's right. In terms of the letters of intent, given their brevity, some of those things might go into the letters that the mentor and co-mentor / supervisor write.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, you guys.
Thank you.
Good. Could I add one comment, Ken? I hope we all appreciate that while we're talking about the specific KL2 funded slots, as we identify candidates who are committed to advancing their career, we may not be able to fund everyone, but we are committed to helping all of those candidates to find additional mechanisms for funding. In that context, Mark, then thinking carefully about those mentoring groups becomes critical, because especially in NIH K space for K-23s, the training plan and the mentoring group are really important elements of that. So I think we're trying to create opportunity for all of our aspiring trainees, some of whom will be able to fund directly with the KL2, and for those where we can't, we're hoping we can assist in the launch of their career with other mechanisms.
So there's a question that hasn't come up yet, but I guess a little bit of a spoiler alert. We don't know how many slots we have, okay? Just to be very candid about that. And the reason is this is a new funding cycle. We put in a request for a certain amount. We got a good score. We hope that the NCAT's got a raise this year. We hope that that translates into us getting the number of slots we requested. We don't know that yet, and we wish we could tell you that, because you would have some sense of what you're competing for. It's going to be more than a couple, and it hopefully will be in the half dozen or so range, which is what we are hoping for, which would be an advance over where we've been. So just to let you know, I mean, that's where we are, and we didn't want to delay this process because people have to make decisions about their futures, and so we're underway with a little bit of uncertainty about that particular element. And I know that's an important one, but that's just the way it is this year.
Well, it occurs to me, this is based on Bob's comment, that maybe we ought to, at some point, think about a more formalized follow-up process for folks who don't get funded through the KL2 mechanism to help them transit to a K08, K23, K whatever application on the next deadline. Maybe a panel exercise that dissects the summary statement that we prepare and helps them craft an improved application. It would be a one-time effort rather than the cycle of panels that we currently offer. Okay, that's it for me. Next idea of the morning.
We really resonate to that. In fact, we've been encouraging that for the last couple of cycles of the KL2 award. But we really need the leadership and all of the partners to help reinforce that this is something that's really likely to be productive. One of the things I just wanted to amplify, so for this KL2 cycle, it's not terribly reasonable that somebody could use a mini sabbatical to help really crystallize their mentoring team. But if you're not successful and you need another 6 months to get a new application ready, really encourage people to think about the mini sabbatical mechanism as a way to go spend time with somebody who might be a very valuable offsite, either high-level collaborator, advisor, or become really part of your mentoring team. And spending a week, a long weekend or a week at another institution with somebody who you think might really be somebody who'd be great for you to work with down the road can really crystallize that.
Great, thank you, David.
Other questions or discussion?
Well, it's the same as the head tape. I mean, this talk,
Oh, yeah.
like that, a night workshop.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any flexibility in terms of the start date of the KL2? Is there any negotiation that can happen?
I think it depends on how much flexibility you're talking about. We definitely will likely, it won't be exactly the same date for every single person, but it will likely be sometime between April and May when scholars will start. Would you agree, Dr. Kroger?
Well, so I guess I would couch it insofar as the slide with the pink table, where in addition to supporting KL2 scholars in the advancement of their own personal career development, we're really trying very hard to create a community of scholars across our partner network. And to do that, it helps enormously to have people kind of at the same place in their, at least in the process or in their appointment, to be able to leverage the kinds of activities. And so that's another way of saying, if all of the scholars were staggered throughout the year, they would all kind of have different starts and they'd be at different places. And so kind of organizing that really important property of our program would be very difficult. So to echo what Jean was saying, our goal is to really establish these appointments this spring to create that community and develop together.
You want to elaborate on what you're thinking about? Because I mean, I think there may be circumstances where there may be some, and I think you stated it wonderfully, and what our goals are. We want to get the best people, and we want to offer the people that can take most advantage of this support. So I think we're going to work to try to make that happen. Now, keep in mind that this is, the start of our renewal application, and we're anticipating doing this annually. And so there'll be another round of applications due next year. And so if you're really off cycle, then that may be the way to do it. If a grant was ending or something was going on where it would benefit you to delay by a month or so, I don't see that being a problem. Now, one issue that might arise is a faculty position starting, in the sort of start of the academic year, July, whenever, and we can work things out, I think, if that sort of is the issue. But we'd like to know about specific circumstances and maybe talk through with people individually what those are, and then give you guidance on that. But hopefully this session is emphasizing we really want this to work for as many people as possible. We want to have everybody be aware that even if this isn't a fit this time around, there's going to be other times and there's other mechanisms. And as I think Mark's comments so importantly emphasized, this is not a one-shot deal. We're in this for the long run, and we want to help people develop their careers and develop their Ks. And if it's through this mechanism, fantastic. If it's this year, great. If it's not this mechanism this year or even next year, we're still here to help.